And for more on what has changed in Iran over the past 6 months, we welcome Farhad Khosrokhavar to the program. He is a Franco-Iranian sociologist who has written extensively about the role of young people in Iran. Welcome to the program. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
Now, because this is a movement led by Iran's youth, I wanted to start by asking you, how has this generation's leadership made a difference from previous protest movements?
I think it's a very good question. The regime is there since 1979. That means more than 4 decades. And they have tried to indoctrinate, the youth through the books, national education and so on. And of course, it's a total failure. They haven't been able to do it. And the youth in Iran is nowadays, at the forefront of this protest movement. And there is something which is paradoxical in the Middle East and in the Muslim world. Women have been the avant-garde. For the first time in the history of social movements in the region, women have, initiated this movement. And then young men, joined them. That means the traditional notions of honor, of man's superiority to women, and so on, have been put into question. And both have acted against what might be called this hyper-repressive theocratic regime. So in that respect, there is something new, innovative. And then there is a second point which is new as well, and it is the fact that women claim not only political freedom, which is an abstract freedom, a collective freedom, but first and foremost, the freedom for the body. That means I don't want to wear the mandatory veil. I just want to choose myself. My body belongs to me. And that's a new fact, of life in Iran, and that I called it, joie de vivre. Joie de vivre, which is a French expression which has passed into English, and which means that they want to be free from this kind of culture of perpetual grief in the name of martyrdom, in the name of opposition to the outside world, to the West, and so on. And they claim that they have nothing against the West. And it is their slogans. In their slogans, they say the regime claims the West is our enemy. The enemy is in here, not in the West. That means that's the regime, the theocratic predatory regime. And in that respect, too, there is an innovation, a kind of moderate relationship to the outside world. The fact that one should have the position of one's body. Nobody should impose on you, the way you should wear. And there are many, veiled women who have followed them. It's not only against the veil, it's against the mandatory veil.
It's about the choice.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Women should have the choice. And in that respect, there are citizens, full-fledged citizens, exactly in the same manner as men. So the distinction between men and women, men being superior to women in terms of, jobs, in terms of their relationship to the family and so on, are put into question. Mm-hmm. So that's the new, I think that's the innovative side of this movement, which contrasts to many other movements in the Middle East and the Muslim world.
Mm. Now, of course, this is a fight that continues, and we've seen the regime crack down, sometimes in extremely brutal ways, on protesters. But what do you see as the accomplishments of the movement over the past 6 months?
This movement is in crisis. Not in crisis in the sense that it is dying out, but in crisis because people cannot come anymore into the open and protest, in daylight. They do it, during the night. Sometimes, they shout from their houses or by tagging, the walls. So there is a major problem because they arrested more than 20,000 people. They tortured more than 4,000 or 5,000 people. They killed more than 520 people. Among them, more than 60 minors, children. So this is a brutal, ruthless, gory government. And in that respect, the young people are having nothing to fight against it. And they don't have any organization. They don't have any leadership because whenever they have it, it is repressed. In that respect, it is a movement which is defenseless against a kind of hyper-armed, repressive government. But what the movement has shown is the crisis of this government. This government has no legitimacy at all. And many sociologists, many women, men, and many scholars and students have said it, explicitly in their interviews or on their website and so on, that this government is without any legitimacy. And that shows at least this side of the coin. That means this government is there just because of repression and not because citizens are with it.
I want to ask you quickly then, with the time we have left, what direction do you see Iran heading then?
My guess is that the movement has not been supported by the Western governments. It has been supported by Western civil society. In Europe, in the United States, almost everywhere in the West, the movement has been followed and supported, but not the government. The government, have been double dealing. Just saying they are supporting it, but as a matter of fact, they didn't do it. But that shows that this movement will not die out as easily as that. And I'm sure personally that other protest movements will come into the open in the future. And this government is doomed to failure perhaps in a few years' time, depending on whether or not the supreme leader will be there or not, because he unifies the repressive forces. Without him, I think the crisis will be much stronger within the government.
Sociologist Farhad Khosrokhavar, thank you so much. And you do have a new book that's come out in France. It translates in English to Democratic Youth Against Predatory Dictatorship. I understand you're working on it in English as well. When can we expect that to be available?
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.